In 2018, the Jacksonville Jaguars were 3-1 and had just beaten the New England Patriots, the AFC champs at the time. And things were different. The Jags had just catapulted themselves to one of the elite in the NFL and changed the culture and identity of the team to a proven winner that is here to stay. They would then go on to lose the next 7 games in a row, bench their starting quarterback who they just paid a bunch of money to, fall apart due to injuries and a bad locker room, and never recover to finish the season 5-12, and retreat back into the laughingstock of the NFL. 2 weeks ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars were 4-1 and had just beaten the Kansas City Chiefs at home, the reigning AFC champs, and I said that the days of the old Jaguars were over, that things were different now, and that they had just catapulted themselves into the elite of the NFL and changed the culture and identity of this team to a proven winner that is here to stay. They have just now lost 2 games in a row, and the last one being in embarrassing fashion. I don't know about you guys, but as a beaten down, experienced Jaguars fan, I think I'm sensing a little bit of deja vu. Now, I was very wrong to jump the gun early and claim that the Jaguars are real and are going to be a good team this year. But now it's the bye week and we still have a long way to go, and the jury is still out on this team even after that 35-7 Rams beatdown in London Sunday morning. The Jags are headed into a very important crossroads right now for the fate of this season and possibly the fate of some of the cornerstone players on this team. Either climb your way back and prove us wrong again, that you aren't the same old Jags, or repeat history of 2018. As was the theme going into the season, I believe that theme will continue throughout the season until I see a real tangible bounce back from this team. I'll believe it when I see it. Let's break it down and be very honest about this team. Welcome back to Jags Japan. It's week 8. We are on bye week. I'm on vacation. I'm poolside. I got a mojito. But even though I'm on vacation doesn't mean I stopped making content for you guys. So I'm still going to be making some Jaguars videos while I'm here. And this time we're not going to be looking forward to any kind of preview matchup like I usually do on this kind of show. And I'm not going to be breaking down another team or an opponent. I think we need to marinate a little longer on this loss to the Rams, as I feel like a lot of the fan base is doing this week. We need to break down exactly what went wrong for this team over there in London, give a little state of the franchise, and some things that I'm seeing with this team that are some serious concerns moving forward. And as always, we'll see how the other teams in the division are doing, and then we'll look forward to see how the Jaguars can possibly dig themselves out of this hole. But first, let's get into some positives before I absolutely blast these guys. The first thing I want to say, and I know everyone's already kind of said it so far, is that through all of this, the Jaguars are still 4-3. Before the season, if you would have told anyone that the Jaguars were going to be 4-3 at the bye, everyone would have happily taken it and thought, hey, things are going on the right track. The Liam Cohen era is working. The Jaguars might actually be a good team. And with the way that the schedule is looking after the bye week, there are legitimately 4 to 5 games where the Jaguars on paper are a lot more talented and should win those games and should have no problem getting to 8, 9, 10 wins possibly, and maybe securing a 6 or 7 seed in the wild card. I still believe that even with a lot of the things that we're going to go through today. And also Travis Hunter, he had his best game of the season yet and is clearly right now the best wide receiver and the best corner on the Jaguars, which it's really good to see since we invested so much into him with the number 2 pick in the draft and giving up a first round next year. It's good to see that, hey, he's real, he's a special talent, and he can do this at this level. Now, unfortunately, those are really the only positives that I have for you after that horrendous showing on Sunday morning. The Jaguars lost 35-7, but in my mind, the game was really over at 21-0 around halfway through the third quarter. And it's pretty clear that no one besides Travis Hunter actually showed up to play that day. You could honestly say that the game was over at halftime, as the Rams were literally kneeling to run out the clock. It was 1:45 left in the game with 2 timeouts. Every other team in any other situation tries to at least get a field goal there, go up 24-0, and really put the other team away. But instead they ran the ball on first down and then kneeled out the rest of the half. Almost like Sean McVay deliberately trying not to drop a 50-burger on the Jags and on his protege, Liam Cohen. But in doing so was actually one of the most disrespectful moves I feel like you can make. Literally telling the other team, we don't think you can actually score 21 points on us. We think the game's over. We're just going to run clock the rest of the game, is basically what Sean McVay told Liam Cohen by doing that. Because we don't want to embarrass you guys any further and make you guys look even worse than you already do. That was rough to see. And it was rough to see the game over at that point already. And I think really that's why everyone is so upset. Because if you just look at the record, 4-3 at the bye, there's no reason to be upset. And the 2 losses were to very good teams. Really, the NFL's elite with the Rams and the Seahawks. But it's about how you look. It's about being a competitive team. It's about not getting absolutely exposed on national TV and the TV commentators absolutely dissing your organization for 3 hours straight in front of millions internationally. It's about Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner on the broadcast pointing out every single little flaw about Trevor Lawrence out to the audience and raising again huge criticism for your very overpaid quarterback. And all of that equity that he built up on Monday Night Football, all that's gone now, by the way. To the world, again, Trevor is a bust and an overpaid joke of a quarterback that people love to clown on like he's New York Giants Daniel Jones. It's about that, and it's also about how every week in the press conference we see Liam Cohen say we gotta clean this up, and then going out and having another 13 penalties. Receivers not getting open, and then when they do, they don't catch the ball. No run game, no consistency from our franchise quarterback, no pass rush, a secondary that can't cover their only other wide receiver when their star receiver is not even playing, can't cover second and third string tight ends that I've never literally heard before, can't make a field goal, going for it on wild 4th downs that everyone knows we're not going to make. That was, in every sense of the word, a typical Jaguars game. And it's why this fan base is so sick to their stomach of this team and of that performance. That game was literally everything that we have hated about the Jacksonville Jaguars over the course of the last 20 years. It felt like 2024 Doug Peterson again. It felt like 2021 Urban Meyer. It felt like 2018 to 2020 Doug Marrone. It even felt like 2013 to 2016 Gus Bradley. So no, I am not all in on this team anymore, like I said 2 weeks ago after the Monday Night Football win against the Chiefs on prime time. I'm back on the wait-and-see wagon, and maybe that's a little reactionary, but I think us Jags fans know and are scarred enough to understand when maybe we jump the gun a little bit too early when we see some success. We did it in 2017 and going into 2018. We did it in 2022 going into 2023. We saw how both of those ended, and so now I understand as a Jags fan and as the fan base to kind of see us start off that good and then have 2 really concerning performances and not think that it's going to continue to go down. Obviously, it's still early and that they could bounce back, but I think we're all kind of separating ourselves from that kind of mindset of, oh, you know, we're real now. No. Let's wait and see. It's a long year. It's a new coach, new regime. There's some things that aren't looking good. We're going to get to those. Obviously, I'm still going to root for them. I'm a huge Jags fan, and I still actually think that they are an 8-9 win team this year. But it's really only because of the weakness of their schedule going forward. I really have no confidence that they can actually be a good team. To me, they're kind of the same as the Texans the last few years. Maybe a little bit better. I think that they're going to beat the terrible teams. They're going to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat on the schedule, like the Jets, the Raiders, and the Titans. But when they face true contenders like the Colts and the Broncos, they're going to get crushed. And then if they do make the playoffs, they're going to get bounced out in the first round. That's at least better than what we are used to, which is losing to the terrible teams. But that's just where the Jaguars are now, and they have a lot to improve on and a lot of issues to fix before they can get into that kind of contender status again. The status that I thought they were getting to after that Monday Night Football win against the Kansas City Chiefs. But let's get to some of those issues now that I went on my whole opening rant. I just want to dive into a few things that concern me about the Jaguars this year and if they can actually fix them. Now, the obvious one is our quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, the $55 a year man that is putting this franchise into a civil war right now. Now, in reality, the most vocal part of our fan base is absolutely done with Trevor Lawrence. He's a bust, he sucks, we need to move on from him as soon as possible. And as someone who has supported and really believed in Trevor so far, I do understand your sentiment. And I'm super frustrated too with the inconsistencies that he's shown, at least over this season especially. But I hate to break it to you guys, he isn't going anywhere, at least in the next 2 years. The way the contract is set up, unless he totally just like bottoms out, he will be the starting quarterback until at least 2027. Possibly 2028. So right now it's kind of ride or die. The Jags can't really do anything with him. And I think you still can get worse than Trevor Lawrence. Jags fans, we know what bad quarterback play looks like. We know what quarterback hell looks like. I think Trevor, what I think of him, I think you can still win with Trevor Lawrence. But, I've made a whole video on Trevor before this season. I went through kind of every season that he's played for the Jaguars, going through his performance and kind of supporting him. And my thought was kind of like, the Jags really set him up to fail like 75% of the time that he has been in the NFL. There are a lot of really good stretches of games where he looks like he's a top 10 quarterback and he plays really well. And then there's a lot of times where there's some stretches of games where he looks bad and he kind of looks like a bottom 10 quarterback in the NFL. But in reality, I think at least in his first 4 years, I don't think any other quarterback could have succeeded as much as he did with what he was given, at least. And I still stand by that thought, and I don't believe, all the fault is on Trevor Lawrence, even for this year. It's a new system, it's a shaky offensive line, especially recently, and a mind-bogglingly regressed receiver room that really can't catch passes unless it's Travis Hunter. However, that does not excuse some of the poor throws and poor decisions that I constantly see him make, especially when it matters most. Now, I say this a lot on this channel, and I think I'm right when I say that, I think a lot of quarterbacks miss throws, even wide open throws. Even the elite quarterbacks do this. And I do think we kind of put everything under the microscope when it comes to Trevor Lawrence because of the expectations that we had of him coming out. But it's easy to see that he does not look comfortable right now in the new system. And the accuracy in moments is an issue right now. We can blame the drops and we can blame the pressures all we want, but I've seen him in enough clean pockets, absolutely just airmail wide open out routes enough times to realize what Trevor Lawrence is and what he might always be. Trevor Lawrence is a good and sometimes great quarterback when everything is going right. When the run game is working, when the offensive line is protecting well, when his receivers can get separation and catch the ball, when the system helps him out, he is good if not great at times. But who else is really good when all of those things are going well? Almost every single starting quarterback in the NFL, which means Trevor Lawrence is an average quarterback right now. And that's the concerning thing to me. He is not a quarterback that elevates players or the team around him. Josh Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Even when things aren't going well, receivers aren't catching passes, the offensive line doesn't hold up very well, or the system doesn't do them any favors, they rise above it and carry the team. Trevor Lawrence just isn't that guy. Trevor Lawrence isn't a game wrecker that teams need to prepare for going into the week. He's just an okay starting quarterback in the NFL. And it hurts us because that's not what we thought we were getting when we got Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall in 2021. But I think it's time we just start shifting our expectations away from that. Away from he's ready to lead us and to be the elite franchise quarterback that he's being paid to be, so maybe shifting more to be we really need to see more of him if he will even be here by the time we open up the stadium in 2028. That's where it's kind of trending right now, that he will not be the quarterback when the Jacksonville Jaguars open up that stadium in 2028. By 2027, if he does not bounce back and be a consistent quality starting franchise quarterback in the NFL, I don't think he's going to be on the team in 2 or 3 years. Obviously, he's given that amount of leeway because of some of the good things that he's done, because of his talent, and because of the contract that we gave him. But that doesn't mean you get to stay as the starting quarterback forever. He's shown flashes. There's an elite quarterback in there somewhere. It's just not now, and it might not be anytime really soon. He still needs to develop, and it's year 5. So maybe that's just who he is. Maybe he's a Jameis Winston or a Ryan Fitzpatrick type who shows flashes of greatness and talent, but just isn't good enough to carry that mantle of that franchise quarterback. And really our only hope, if he doesn't develop into that this year, is that he kind of has that resurgence like Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones right now at the Colts, and resurrect his career in Jacksonville, and hopefully doesn't end up becoming the next Baker Mayfield in 2028 for the Pittsburgh Steelers or Los Angeles Rams, for example. And the contract is whatever to me. I understand it's what the Jaguars probably needed to pay him at the time to keep him, and he had shown enough flashes that we think he's going to be a franchise quarterback and he's going to be trending in the right direction. So I understand why they paid him when they did. And in a year or 2 years, that contract will be maybe not even in the top 10, possibly. But it is pretty silly when he's the 4th or 5th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and he's playing like he's the 18th best quarterback. But I still root for him. I think he can still be a good quarterback in this league and for the Jaguars for years to come. It's just that the pressure's on, and we just can't keep having bad games like that where we see him miss open receivers and get blown out, and he's a reason why we do. It's just we can't keep having that. Not in year 5, not in 2025. Things need to change quick. But there's a lot more than just Trevor Lawrence that's wrong with this team. Yes, he's the big topic of the week and really the whole year, but it's no secret that he really doesn't get any help from his wide receivers around him, and it's getting pretty ridiculous. Since Trevor Lawrence came to the league, he's always had a receiver room that has led the NFL in drops. Could that be because of the way he throws the ball somehow? I mean, maybe, but come on, guys. Y'all are in the NFL. If it hits your hands, you got to catch it. And every week, it continues to be in crucial moments that just kill our drives and a lot of the times lose us the game. And that starts with our wide receiver 1, Brian Thomas. And look, guys, there's really not much else to say. He's not a wide receiver 1 in this league right now, nor should he be viewed as one. 10 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards. That doesn't happen with the top wide receivers in the NFL. Top wide receivers, if they get 10 targets, it's 8 catches for at least 90 to 110 yards. I've been saying that, he seemed to be back to kind of his old self the past few weeks, and he had a few good games, but he still had a few drops here and there. And this week might have been the worst one. And I think he's kind of all the way back regressed. And I think the Jags need to seriously start looking at other options and kind of take away that target share until he proves he can be more effective. It sucks because we feel like we were counting on him so much this year. And I think that you can tell a huge part of the offense was supposed to run through him. I remember Liam Cohen in his opening press conference said, how can we make sure we get Brian Thomas Jr. 10 to 12 targets? I really think a big reason why the offense looks so broken is because they were counting on Brian Thomas Jr. to run basically the Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase route tree where he's getting the ball 10 to 12 times a game and everything else runs off of that. But obviously BTJ is not stepping up in that role. And that's kind of left the offense looking so clunky and looking for those chunk plays in a lot of different other ways. To me, there's no trust in him anymore, from this fan base. And he's really going to have to earn it again. Maybe this will help. Maybe this will humble him. And maybe he'll work harder to kind of prove himself like he did in his rookie year and kind of bounce back from this. And God, I hope he does. He's such a special talent. And he's a really good and humble dude. And it just sucks to see it go to waste right now. And it's killing this team. Just hope he can kind of bounce back. That's all we could really hope for. But he's not the only one. Parker Washington, De'Ami Brown, both had huge crucial drops in this game. They are also part of the big problem in this wide receiver room and really can't be fully trusted in my opinion either. And that's why I'm not fully on the Trevor sucks wagon yet that a lot of the fan base is on. 3 of our top 4 wide receivers going into this year can't be trusted to actually catch the ball half the time it's thrown to them. And the other wide receiver spent the first 6 weeks trying to figure out where to line up and what route to run because he's also playing defense. So how is Trevor supposed to lead this offense and help it function when they get backed up every single drive on a holding call or an illegal motion or something that puts us behind the sticks? And then when he finally does find a receiver open and gives them a good catchable ball, there's a 40% chance that they're not going to catch it. It's just unacceptable. It's just crazy. But I will say that the other wide receiver he has, Travis Hunter, is that guy. And I think he is wide receiver 1 right now, and possibly for the rest of the year until Brian Thomas can figure his stuff out. Really no complaints on him at all. He's special. It pisses me off that his first 100-yard game and his first touchdown couldn't even have been really celebrated because the Jaguars were getting their asses blown out by 28. He's wide receiver 1 and he's cornerback 1 until someone else steps up. And I say honestly at this point, after the bye week, I say play him fully at both ways until he takes himself out of the game because he can't go on. I say we run the passing game through him and that he's covering the other team's best wide receiver. I think he's earned that so far with the way he's played and the way he's just kind of done everything, especially the last few weeks. I liked what they were doing, bringing him along slow so far, but I think now's the time, and I think he's shown that he's really the only one that can kind of be relied on in both of those positions. It sucks because the rest of the team just isn't good enough to elevate with him and maybe bring him along in that way, but if the Jaguars want to win games, I think they need to feature him, honestly. And really, I think he's the only one that excites me on offense and defense right now. And then there's Cam Little. I was pretty angry after the game, I will say. I said the Jaguars need to cut him or something. Now, I'll walk back my statements, and I did see Liam Cohen did say that they're not going to bring in any competition or anything like that. They're sticking with their guy. I respect that, you know. I thought that they maybe should at least sign someone to the practice squad just in case. These missed kicks matter, and it's also kind of just killing the game flow. I counted every single missed opportunity that the Jaguars had to score and kick a field goal in that game against the Rams. And at one point in the middle of the third quarter, if the Jags would have made a field goal every single time they were in Rams field goal range, instead of going for it on fourth down, and instead of missing that 50-yarder earlier in the game, the Jags would have only been down 21-15 with a quarter and a half to play. Now, I'm not saying that they would have won the game or anything, but that completely changes how the game is played and how the game is viewed going forward. If the Jaguars had a good NFL kicker that could make consistent kicks like Jason Myers or like Brendan Aubrey, it would have been a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. Just think about that for a second. And the crazy thing is we thought we had that going into the year. We thought we had a guy who could hit it from 70, who could hit it from wherever, a guy who's automatic once we get past the 50-yard line. And now he's a total head case. And I'm really worried about his future here in Jacksonville. You know, if he comes out against the Raiders and the Texans and misses a few field goals, and God forbid costs us the game on one of those, or something like that, then he's done in Jacksonville. You know, I don't care at that point, because if, you know, even if he does become an all-pro somewhere else, if you can't do it here, then see ya. You know, Jason Myers was in Jacksonville. We kept him for like 2 or 3 years. We gave him a shot because of how talented he was. He just couldn't get it done here. And, you know, we cut him. He goes to Seattle, and he's had like a 10, 12-year career being an all-pro or Pro Bowl for multiple years. Good for him. It sucks he couldn't do it here, but, you know, at some point, if you can't make the kicks, you can't play here. I'm sorry. You know, it's what you're paid to do, and there's no excuse. Flipping it over to the defense, the biggest thing, you know, for me and a lot of the fan base is asking is, where's the pass rush? Where's Josh Hines-Allen? Half a sack just isn't cutting it, man. I know he's got all the pressures in the world, and at points I do see him in the game, you know, knocking back tackles and getting in there. But at some point, you got to get him on the ground. It's what you're paid to do. And, you know, it's looking like that without a fully healthy Trayvon Walker on the other side, this team can't do anything pass rush wise. And it's getting really concerning. You know, if we can't get home with 4 and we have to blitz the whole game to get any kind of pass rush, it just puts our lacking secondary really out to dry and just big plays waiting to happen. You know, we got a lot invested on that defensive line right now. It's just not cutting it. And that's what I think is kind of the biggest issue with the Jaguars right now. The cornerstone players that we have invested a lot in, that we're counting on the most this year, aren't playing good enough. Our highly paid franchise quarterback is getting outplayed by rookies. Our wide receiver 1 is looking like a third-string wide receiver. Our highly paid premier pass rusher is missing in action. And the identity of this team, which was a run-first team, is just completely lost. And it's lost its way immensely. You know, I think the thing that covered up so many of these issues in the first 4 weeks was obviously winning games, but mostly turnovers. And they were getting a crazy amount of turnovers that's just not consistent and can't be counted on during a full season in the NFL. And we're seeing that when teams play conservative and just play smart football and don't turn the ball over, it's hard for us to kind of generate any kind of momentum or big plays of our own to carry the team and get wins. If the Jags want to be a playoff team or just want to be competitive with good teams, those players I mentioned need to come to play, and they need to play well. The whole players not plays thing doesn't work if those players aren't making plays. You know, I still don't want to take anything from the Jaguars being 4-3. I think people are kind of reacting like we're 1-6, but I think it's because we finally believed in them again, and now they are finding ways to hurt us again. And they're kind of opening up those old wounds that we have by getting absolutely demolished by a good team. I think the Jags still have a bit to go, you know, before being a good team again in my book. Just need to get our good players to kind of play like good players do. And I think for this team to get back to their identity, and I think there will be much more kind of positive vibes going forward if they can get back to that. Let's move on now and get to my thoughts on the AFC South right now. This is going to be a lot quicker than usual because, you know, the Colts are not only the best team in the division by far, they're undeniably one of the best teams in the NFL, which is just crazy to think about. They have the best record in the NFL. It just feels so weird because before this season, they really looked like the most average team on paper. But they literally have everything clicking right now. It feels like no one can stop their offense. in my mind, my eyes aren't set on the division anymore. I think the Colts legitimately have a shot at a really special season, like 14-3, 15-2 type season. And as for the Texans, though they're a talented team, I think it'll be a tough game with them going to Houston in a few weeks. But sitting at 2-4, they're not really a threat in the AFC. Funny enough, you could say that if the Jags had the Texans schedule, the Jags would also be 2-4 or 3-4 or something like that too. But anyways, the Titans suck and they aren't a threat either. But the Jaguars still are firmly in the number 2 spot. Unless the Colts just totally implode and begin looking bad and start losing games, that's not going to change in my opinion. The question will be, will the Jags continue to be on the rise and maybe be a wild card team, or at least maybe fight for the division? Or are they going to pull a 2018 and totally implode on themselves? Still a long season, but we will see. But looking forward, I think there are things that, I think need to change, and specifically on the offensive side of the ball. And I think they need to get back to running the ball heavily. I've said this a lot, but I think the identity of this team going into the season was going to be run first, and they've kind of gone away from that. Liam Cohen even admitted in the Seattle game that they were looking to pass first because the secondary of the Seahawks was so injured. But we saw what happened, and that did not work. I think the last 2 games, the Jaguars, the last 3 games really, they have not been able to run the ball at all. And I think, like I said, I think they need to get it back into that. In my mind, there should be no game the rest of the year where ETN has less than 10 touches and that Tootin has less than 5. Even if it doesn't work, stick to it. Liam Cohen was hired because he took Tampa Bay's offense, which was the last in the league in rushing, and made them the best. So I think it's really on him to figure it out. It's what he was brought in to do. And like I said, I think they need to make Travis Hunter wide receiver 1. I'd say keep BTJ on the outside as a wide receiver 2 or 3, and only give him out routes, comebacks, and go routes. Nothing over the middle. I don't trust him anymore on the middle. He has dropped a few on the outside too, but you can tell he looks a little more comfortable there, and he's made his biggest plays of the year on that side so far. So keep him on the outside and let him run those 3 or 4 routes. Maybe hit a 1 or 2 times a game, try to go to him to a deep ball or something. But besides that, I'm looking at Travis Hunter and Brenton Strange. If he can get back healthy, I'm looking at those 2 to carry our passing game going forward. And then also, I'd like to see some more designed runs with Trevor. I think his best game of the year, the Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs, was also the game where he had his best rushing day. I think he needs to do that to kind of get the offense in more of a rhythm. And then on defense, I think it's really simple. There's not a lot of things I think they can do. To me, they just don't really have the personnel to really stack up with a lot of the best offenses in football. But I think if they can just get healthy, if they can get Devin Lloyd back on the field and playing like he was earlier this season, and then I think if possible, if we can get Trayvon Walker off the club and back healthy, I think that would help a lot, getting pressure and kind of making more plays on the defensive side of the ball. And I think putting Travis Hunter out there a little bit more and covering the team's number 1 wide receiver more instead of Newsome or Brown or Jerry and Jones, I think that would help out a lot. I think about possibly maybe a change at safety. If Dewey is still getting beat by tight ends, I would say, maybe try Antonio Johnson in there or something. Or maybe even Rayon Lane. He looks pretty good too. And then I'd say also have more of a plan for Greg Newsome. We brought him in to kind of fill Tyson Campbell's role because Tyson wasn't playing good enough. Well, Tyson's playing pretty good for the Browns now. I thought going in that Greg Newsome and Tyson Campbell were very comparable as players. Start playing him like that. He should have enough time now to get used to the system, get him out there and get him playing a lot and get him playing better. And I think if there is a trade at all, I think the move is pass rusher or interior D-line. I don't think the interior D-line has been playing terribly. I think they're still pretty good at stopping the run, but it's mostly pressure. If we can get some kind of pass rush from the inside. And then also, I think the Jags desperately need help for another pass rusher outside of Trayvon and Josh Hines-Allen because Smoot and Ogba just aren't getting it done. It's kind of like having Caleb on Chase on back again. It's like nothing's going on back there. But also just use the bye week, reevaluate these things, get back on track. I do think that the bye week came at the right time for the Jaguars this year. What I laid out was kind of how the Jaguars can kind of fight back. Obviously, I'm not paid to do these things. I'm just a talking head on YouTube, but those are just my thoughts on the Jags and how they might be able to move forward. Turnovers are great, but we really can't just rely on them every single game to get wins. At the end of the day, your star players, and especially your guys on offense, need to step up and need to be the identity of this team moving forward. They need to start improving, and I think the offense needs to start winning us more games. As much as I love winning in general, I'd like to see the offense win us a few games for once. That'd be nice. So yeah, maybe I was wrong. maybe this team isn't ready for competitive football against the league's best or even against just playoff teams. But I think there's still time to prove me wrong. And Jags fans, we've been here before. And I know it's hard. I know it's going to be hard to kind of believe in this team again after everything we've been through. And I'm definitely not going to sugarcoat anything or say that, oh, you guys should believe in them. But after all of that and after all the mess that we just witnessed, the Jaguars are still 4-3. And they still have a chance to prove to us, if that game or the last few games was a fluke or not. But for me, I'll only continue to believe it once I see it on the field. It's still really early on. So let's just see if they have the fight in them and if this team really is different to kind of bounce back from this. Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence, BTJ, Josh Hines-Allen, you're the cornerstones of this team. So figure it out. But anyway, that's all for me. My rant's over. I hope you guys get to enjoy this next Sunday without football. I don't know about you guys, but for me, watching the Jags is a little bit of a headache, a little bit of an anxiety attack just waiting to happen. So sometimes bye weeks are good. I get to enjoy watching other teams around the league. I'm definitely going to enjoy being on vacation and hanging out by the pool. Like I said, does not mean I'm not going to have videos coming out. Thursday, I have a pretty fun video about Japanese konbinis. If you guys are interested, check that out. And I'll still have my podcast and everything. I'll still come out with videos, don't worry. But anyways, appreciate all you guys' support. Appreciate you guys for watching as always. And stay tuned for more Jags Japan content. See you later.